Okay, good morning, everybody. I'll call the meeting in the Madison Metropolitan Sewerage District to order. Welcome to all of our guests. We do have Commissioner Meyer participating virtually. All other commissioners are in the room, so that's 8 of us in the room. Cassie, go through the virtual meeting guidance, please.
Good morning, Commissioners, members of the public, and staff. To help us have a smooth meeting, I'm going to review just a few decorum rules for all. While the Commission and staff are in person, we are still offering a Zoom option so members of the public can attend. If you're attending virtually and would like to speak, you can do so during appearances by the public. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and streamed live on YouTube, and the public chat has been disabled, but you can still send messages to the host if need be. Finally, Commissioners, please use your microphones while speaking and make sure your voice is directed towards the mic. When you're not speaking, please ensure your mic is off so others can utilize the mics. As a reminder, only 3 of the table mics can be live at a time. Also, please state your name before speaking for those who may be joining us via Zoom. Those are the decorum rules of the District Commission. Thank you for following them, and let's have a great meeting.
Okay, thank you, Cassie. Any announcements? No announcements? And so we're going to have welcome Zach Weber by Roy Rodriguez.
Hi, my name is Roy Rodriguez. I'm the electrical and HVAC supervisor. I'm introducing Zach Weber. Zach Weber is a Louisiana native. He joins us recently leaving the U.S. Air Force. While in the U.S. Air Force, he was part of the plumbing and utilities group. Zach is happily married. Him and his wife have an 18-month-old daughter. Zach's hobbies include hiking, outdoor activities, working on cars, and home repairs. That's it.
Welcome. Okay. Any appearances by the public? Do we have anybody from the public? Nobody showed up. Okay. So we have the consent calendar where we have approval of the minutes, cash statement operating, approval of extension plan in Fitchburg, approval of professional services agreement amendment for the Southeast Interceptor relocation at Yahara River, transaction amount operation building, review of bids and award of contract manhole rehabilitation, transaction amounts Struvite harvesting building, and authorized agreement settlement of cases related to the Lower Badger Mill Creek Interceptor project condemnations. Eric's got, before we get a motion, Eric has a few answers to questions that people had raised with him last.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Hovell. Eric Dundee, Executive Director. So questions that were received from commissioners before we go to any consent action is on item F, the review of bids and award of contract for manhole rehab phase 1. Part of the questions received there was about the price of the contract versus the budget total. The budget total was $150,000. The contract price was over $300,000. Just wanted to make sure that the commission knew that that budget was a budget item, not the actual scope of work that we did bid out. Part of that work is basically the top 10 most important manhole rehabs we have for the district right now. This is part of our asset management program of keeping up with that. Specifically, we have one manhole in University Avenue that is settled, and City of Madison and the sewer district receive complaints on that quite often. That one manhole is over $100,000 just in itself because of traffic control, logistics, mobilization, things like that. So wanted to address that difference between budget amount and actual contract bid. And then the next item is item G, approval of transaction amount for Struvite harvesting building exterior repairs. So that project is due to the windstorm and damages we incurred from that. And just to be clear on that, the question was related to insurance. So this action is about transaction amount, so the commission approving the work to be done. We are working with our insurance on this also. So I just wanted to make that known that this isn't related to insurance, this action isn't, but that is a separate thing we're working on. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions on anything? Any other, Greg?
Yeah, so, thank you, Eric. And with regard to the first item you talked about, which was the manhole rehabilitation, one of my other questions, comments was, this was a single bid. And, so my first part of my question, which you alluded to, was, right, well, it was a single bid and it was double the estimate. Now I realize the scope of work was different, so the estimate is really not appropriate. But my other question is still, is there a need to open and accept a single bid, as this is the first time this has been advertised, correct?
Yeah, at this point, Commissioner Hovell, I would ask if you would like to pull this off the consent item for further discussion.
Let's do the other items, A through E and, G and H, and then we'll come back to F under topics. Does that make sense? Okay, so do we have a motion on all the other items but item F?
This is Commissioner Freeze. I would move approval.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Freeze, second by...
Commissioner Clark, I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Clark. All those in favor of consent calendar items A through E and G and H, so that excludes F, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Okay, so let's go back to F, the award of contract for the manhole rehabilitation. We're gonna have a little more discussion.
Thank you. To address the single bid and the timing, ultimately, the commission gets to decide that, if we are going to approve this project or not. That is in the commission action report of different alternatives. For the district, this was reviewed by Alan Grooms, Director of Operations and Maintenance, and based on, the cost and the need, he is recommending the approval of doing this project. If we do rebid this project, most likely it will not be done in this construction season, and this money is in the operating budget, so that money will then slide to the next year, and the manholes we are planning for next year would get pushed off again. So that is the only risk and consequences here of this project, not moving forward at this point. So ultimately, I would say this is a commission decision if you want to move forward or not.
So I got a question for you. When you bid these projects, do you pre-qualify bidders?
Yeah, we do. Actually, in the commission action report, I believe there was 3 pre-qualified bidders.
Okay, so is it possible that one bidder knew that they may be the only one bidding, or is it they're thinking, oh, I could be up against 2 other people?
We wouldn't know any of that information if they know that, but we do have the people could find out that how many bidders were pre-qualified, but they don't know any of that information as the bid is happening.
So if we open up this for rebidding, you think the estimate is going to be changed to 300 plus again? Now you know what the additional work is?
Yeah, we're not concerned about what the estimate is. Yeah, we could change that estimate for us, but since it's in the operating budget, we're already moving funds from different line items into this one to pay for.
Okay, so I don't recall, I recall us having other single bidders before, but I thought we had a policy on that. We don't. But I thought after one time we had a single bidder, one of the commissioners suggested developing a policy. Maybe that's something for people here to consider as to what we do and how, I don't know, you just throw it off to the side and rebid. I don't know what the policies say. Maybe that's why we don't have it. And they leave it to a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, that has been a discussion here at the commission level multiple times about that.
Mm-hmm.
We do know as a district staff, depending on the project, for instance, what's coming up later today, liquid processing phase 2, you're doing everything possible to get more than one or even get one. In this case, it is a little more what we would call standard work that, hopefully you're trying to get multiple bids Whether it was timing, difficulty of the locations, what it was that caused only one bidder at the time, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. Beth?
Eric, could you just explain to us why you think this is a reasonable amount for the bid?
Yeah, a little more detail is that the original budget item took into account what it would take to actually fix the manholes. Review by Adam Carlson here, who is the owner of this project. His review of the bids is the actual manhole work was about $145,000, right in line with what that amount was, that $150,000. It was all the other things, the traffic control, mobilization, things like that, that caused the project to basically double.
And so when you put that in the budget, you really didn't consider all the extras that would have been. So that kind of explains why the 300,000 is, yeah, okay.
Well, so this is actually 10 manholes in City of Madison and City of Middleton area, so they're not all in one project location, which that traffic control issue is,
Okay,
you're
so
setting up different spots.
and so each manhole has different traffic control issues. But it's not on this one. Dan?
Two questions. One, Speedway normally a high bidder or a low bidder? That's number one. And number two is, do you ever contact the people that don't respond? Like, did they ever, I mean, if you mailed it to them, I would give them a 50-50 chance they got the RFP. I mean.
Yeah, so the first question is about Speedway, sand and gravel, being a high bidder. I'm not going to answer that question because every project is different. You know, some contractors specialize in some work that some don't. In this case, I would say Speedway Sand and Gravel is a qualified contractor to do this work. They've done this work for us in the past. Prices usually depend on how much work they have at the moment, when they're going to fit it in, how difficult. And then remind me your second question. Oh, about, yeah, notifying bidders and things, finding things out. Yeah, so we actually use a bidding program that all our local contractors and actually nationwide contractors can use to receive bids. And they all, I believe, I don't know this for sure, but they get notice when we actually put things out there. I'm getting confirmation. So, yeah, there are definitely companies that knew because we had 3 qualified bidders. They went through the pre-qual process. Two of them just did not submit a bid.
Commissioner Lytle, I know we've talked a lot of angles on this. Curious between district staff and MSA if the unit amounts and projected future rehab locations has caused us to revise kind of placeholder budgets for future manhole rehabs based on bid.
I will confirm yes. So a lot of discussion is about, okay, what happens next year? If this project moves forward next year, is it less manholes? Is it budgeting more money, moving money into there? Once again, all of these locations are different. So when we do next year's, every location is going to have other scenarios and difficulties. But I will confirm we are definitely in discussions about how to adjust for next year.
Okay, anybody else? Nope. Do we have a motion as to approve or turn down? No, we don't. Do we have a motion to do that? Do something with the item? No?
Okay. This is Commissioner Freeze. I'll move that we go ahead and approve this, and I would also like to at least recommend again that we come up with a policy to formalize how we do this for single bids. No, but I would move approval of this.
Yeah, we can't be the only place facing single bids. So there are probably plenty of policies.
Murphy, I'll second the motion.
Motion by Commissioner Freed, second by Commissioner Murphy to approve item F under the consent calendar. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? None, motion carries. Okay, that'll take us to topics.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Kaylin Hackler-King, Project Engineer here at the District and the Project Manager for Nine Springs Liquid Processing Improvements Phase 2. I will be presenting on two topics today: the review of bids, award of contract, and increase in total project cost, and the approved transaction amount and approved professional service agreement amendment. All right, so a little bit of a refresher on the project background. So originally, the liquid process facility plan was conducted in 2016, and this was to evaluate the path for the future liquid processing improvements projects. Phase 1, which was completed in 2021, addressed the hydraulic capacity issues here at the plant, and Phase 2, this current project, is to address activated sludge improvements to accommodate the 2050 permit requirements. Phase 2 not only includes adjustments to the operation of the biological treatment process, but also the aging infrastructure that the process depends. Why are we doing this project? We're anticipating the loading to increase between now and 2050. And a lot of the equipment related to the activated sludge process is well beyond the design life and is in declining condition. In order to continue treating the wastewater to meet permit compliance, upgrades and replacements are necessary. This probably isn't the first time you're seeing this slide, but it was a good highlight to cover how much of the plant we're going to be touching. There are some more areas that aren't distinctly highlighted because they're tunnels. So 3 of our major tunnels are going to have a lot of equipment and piping replacement within them as well. And those are located in the center of the BNR activated sludge tanks. But to put a little bit of perspective here, up in the top left corner is where we are at currently in the maintenance facility, and highlighted in red is the areas of the plant that we're anticipating most of the work to occur. And so this construction work includes, but is not limited to, the replacement of the aeration blowers, aeration diffusers, return activated sludge, and waste activated sludge pumping systems, east primary tank collector mechanisms and stop gates, headworks channel blowers, and distribution structure gates. This work also includes the construction of a new channel and tank compressed air mixing systems, new post-aeration channels, with the installation of post-aeration gates, blowers, piping, and valves. It also includes the removal and replacement of deteriorated concrete walkways at the aeration tanks and primary channel and tank walls. Removal of existing masonry baffle walls at the aeration tanks. Enlarging of openings within the concrete walls at aeration tanks. Heating, ventilating and air conditioning work, electrical work, pipe work, yard piping, miscellaneous piping work, miscellaneous metal work and concrete work, as well as other ancillary work required for this project. So I just wanted to highlight a few fun numbers associated with this project. One of which is the final set of drawings and specifications were a combined 2,500 pages long. The core design group reviewed this document 3 to 4 times, sometimes more, depending on who needed to be involved. So that was a lot of work reading through and reviewing carefully all of those pages. So far, design has been 1,221 days long. We started this in March of 2023. And we will have 445 new assets. An asset does not include the manual valves, so there's a lot more equipment beyond this. There's more of equipment that talks through the SCADA system, has a lot of electrical involved with it as well. And there are also 200 assets planned for demolition. So where we're at in the project schedule, we currently just opened up bids on July 10th. We completed detailed design in May of 2026. And the 2 ads for this project were posted in the Wisconsin State Journal on June 2nd and June 8th. So we had a 6-week bidding window. Right now, substantial completion is set for March 2030. Final completion set for June 2030. I just wanted to show the initial construction sequence, which focuses on how to keep construction moving forward while maintaining adequate capacity. The consultants analyzed the hydraulic capacity when one entire plant is shut down at a time, which is about 25% of the activated sludge process. Shutting down one plant at a time minimizes the amount of plant shutdowns required to perform the work. We chose to shut down in smaller portions. It would take about 7 shutdowns of these processes, which would stretch it another 1.5 years. Right now, we currently have 4 major activated sludge shutdowns. Bids were accepted on July 10th, 2026. During bidding, there were 32 plant holders on Quest CDN, the service that Eric had mentioned earlier. These include contractors, manufacturers, and suppliers. There were 3 pre-qualified prime contractors and 7 pre-qualified subcontractors. Pre-qualifications were required for mechanical, plumbing, HVAC, and electrical subcontractors. The engineering estimate for construction was $84,484,000 in June of 2026. Bids were provisionally accepted on July 10th. The low competitive bid of $90,905,427 was awarded to the qualified and responsive bidder, C.D. Smith Construction. We received a second bid from Lunda Construction at $92,972,661. The second item is the amendment to the professional service agreement with Strand Associates. Strand is the current consulting engineer who has been working with Brown and Caldwell for liquid processing improvements phase 2. Strand has performed well in previous stages and will be retained for construction service. We are looking to extend Strand's contract through June 2031 and increasing the contract by $3,193,860. Their total construction services cost was $4,235,529, but a credit for remaining money in detailed design will be applied for $1,041,669, bringing it to the $3 million stated earlier. For the total project cost increase, the cost has increased from $92 million to $108 million. All of these design decisions were thoroughly vetted by the design team and decided upon based on their ability to simplify the construction sequence, enhance treatment processes, improve ability of the plant to run with lower dissolved oxygen, and allow for easier and safer operation. One of the factors contributing to the increase in total project cost relates to the status of the design progress when the 2026 CIP was developed. When the estimated project cost for 2026 was developed, detailed design was at approximately 30% completion. We had just received the 30% review plans, and so the 30% cost estimates were received in July of 2025. And the engineer's estimate for construction has increased since that time as design has progressed and decisions were made. Another factor is inflation and BABA, which have affected the cost of materials and equipment. BABA-compliant stainless steel has increased in cost by 20 to 30%, and BABA requirements are relatively new, and there's been some confusion with manufacturers who are still learning how to comply. Today, I am requesting the approval of resolutions 2026-0730R7, 2026-0730R. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions before we get a motion, or Beth?
I'm just curious as to what Strand's role in this is. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Strand is our design engineer, so they have been doing the majority of the design as it relates to the activated sludge, the diffusers, the blowers. Actually, Brown and Caldwell did the blower system, as well as structural elements. And then Brown and Caldwell did the design of the post-aeration tank.
And so why did the cost for Strand go up?
Oh, those are for their construction services, so that is for the stage 4 of the contract. So now we are adding services as it relates to having a dedicated RPR, having someone from Strand on site reviewing submittals, having special inspections such as structural inspections by their dedicated structural engineers, and other work associated with helping with construction oversight. Yeah.
So I got a question on that. Wouldn't you have included in your project budget their construction services fee? So what was that? So why is it going up so much?
So if you look at it in the car, the actual, so their current scope of work did not include construction services. We did that on purpose. So we have amended their contract. The goal is to amend their contract to include construction services.
It wasn't included in the project cost.
It was. If you look at the car and the line item for engineering costs, that actually has not increased. So we're just amending their contract. We were estimating that cost to be incurred, and that was included in our budget. So the engineering, we're anticipating that cost has not increased for the project. So what increased is the construction cost for the.
So the $18 million of project cost increase from 17 million, 91,925 to 108 is all construction, because that doesn't.
Yeah, if you look at the.
That doesn't comport with the 84 to 90 million.
Look at the.
That's a $6 million difference.
Sorry, if you look at the car, there's line items in there somewhere. Find it. That has table, and sorry, it's on page 50 in your packet. So, there's the budgeted and current cost estimates for the project that are listed in the table below. It's right in the middle of the page.
Which,
It's on page 50 of your
well,
packet.
I don't have that 105 for Speedy Smith.
Yep, it's the it's the, resolution, it's the one for, accepting bids and increasing the total project cost, correct? So it's 30 R7.
So what page of I have 5 pages with
Second page. So there's,
2 of 5.
yep, right in the middle of the page. Yep, right there. So there's two line items there. One shows the professional services and design and construction costs, the second
Yeah.
line. So you can see that's pretty much in line with what was already in our estimate. So that really isn't going up. The number above is the number that's going up. So that's basically construction cost. And as Kaylin noted, you know, there's kind of two components to that increase. One is just that the engineer's estimate has increased because, you know, our estimate was from the 30% design this time last year. So part of it is that, and part of it is just bidding, right? If you looked at our bid tab, the bids received were higher than the current engineer's estimate, and that's just a function of market conditions and bidding right now.
Okay, so I got a couple questions. You know, as I was looking through this and reading this, a couple things hit me. One was scope creep, and I know we've talked about some of this scope creep before. It makes you wonder how much it really creeped up beyond. But the other thing is this just too big of a project? That's why you only got 2 bidders. You know, would it have been better to have broken this project into smaller pieces and made it perhaps more competitive? Because you're asking a contractor, and yeah, they have certainty with this project for 4 years, but maybe certain contractors don't want to have that, you know, and you're asking them to commit to something 4 years out. You know, they might be buying stainless steel 3 years from now. Could be higher, could be lower. I don't know. But, and I'm sure that and all the other equipment adds into the cost because they're having to project, hey, what are these costs going to be 3 years from now when we're buying that equipment? So, did anybody ever think about that you're just getting way too big and that you're limiting your number of bidders because people just aren't used to dealing with projects that are $100 million?
I think we've had that discussion internally, and, you know, I think there was you know, in the past, we sort of did things in additions. Then there was before my time at the district, there was sort of let's break these things into smaller pieces, you know, for whatever reason. I'm not sure what the reason was there, but, I think what we saw was, you know, the sum of the smaller projects is probably going to end up to be greater than the cost of the big project because of all the construction sequencing and, you know, the shutdowns Kaylin talked about. Instead of having to do one shutdown, you got to do, you know, multiple shutdowns and coordinate with different contractors. So the other thing is, you know, remember that this 2016, the facility plan for this project was done in 2016, and it was decided at that time to break the project into 3 pieces, right? 1, 2, and 3. 3, you'll see when we talk about the CIP later, phase 3 is way, way out. And the longer something goes out, the higher the cost gets. So I'm not sure. I mean, it's a valid question, but in my opinion, with the scope of the work the amount of work we need to get done, the more pieces we break it into, the harder it's going to be to get it done, in my opinion.
Great. One last, even though I have others, I think I'll just, Greg's got to leave at 10, Paul's going to leave at 10. Is in the staff report, I believe you talked about this, you view this as learning opportunities. So I'm guessing, what learning opportunities do you see? And I'm concerned that when I see the word learning opportunities, we're pushing the envelope too much. Because I remember in prior editions, we pushed the envelope too much, then we had to come back and correct it. I don't remember what edition it was, but the following edition, it was close to 25 or 30%, the cost was spent cleaning up problems from the prior edition, those learning opportunities. And so I'm kind of wary when I see that term learning opportunity and what it actually means, and what if we're wrong? It almost sounds like we're just throwing the dice and saying, hey, let's see if this works. We're dealing with people's money here, so
what else? I'm sorry if you're not finished. Wait. what I'll say to that is, what that really is referring to is that we know nitrogen limits are coming at some point. And so we think that the low DO process offers us a better chance of meeting those limits once they come. And so, having the ability to run the plant in low DO mode, which is different than how it's run now, gives us a chance to try to get out ahead of potential limits that are coming later. So that's kind of what that's referring to. Perhaps it was poorly worded, but that's sort of what we were angling for.
Okay, so when you began, when the presentation began, there was talk about, I think they said 2050 permit requirements. So we know for certain what the 2050 permit requirements are? Because I've asked before about nitrogen requirements for years and told, don't worry about it, that it might be coming, but they're way down the road. Now all of a sudden that sounds like that road is here.
We don't specifically know what the permit will be in 2050, but we are able to try to project, and we did with this project, we are able to try to project the future flow and loadings that we anticipate. And so our design anticipates that future flow and loadings, and as best we can, what we think might be coming in terms of permit limits, but we can't predict the future either. So we did our best.
Well, it reminds me of the disinfection system. So we put in this disinfection system that can operate, and then the DNR says whatever we do, they keep telling us to push more. So I'm concerned that you're going to say that, hey, we did this and we can meet these loading requirements. But the DNR is going to say, oh, that's really great. We're going to push them a little bit harder to meet these now. And so, you know what I'm saying? It's like everything's always up and seems to be amorphous with the DNR and their requirements. You know, we had different requirements for the disinfection system than other communities, even though their permits were issued at the same time. And I think we're treated differently because we keep pushing this envelope. And then they see that we push the envelope, and then they say, well, push the envelope a little more. And so that's where my concern is, that we're doing that. They're going to say, oh, well, you're doing such a good job. You did your planned addition in 2030 to be able to meet these loadings. So now we're going to put you in the new loading situation, and we're going to be spending another $200 million 10 years from now to meet that. So that's my 2 cents. That's what I think, after 34 years or 32 years on the commission, whatever it is, how I see the DNR operating. Okay, anybody else? Patrick?
Commissioner Lytle, I appreciate the presentation. You discussed both the prime contractor and subcontractor pre-qualification process. You mentioned that 3 primes were pre-qualified. Can you speak a little more about that pool prior to pre-qualification, and then kind of being on the other end of this in my day job, I wouldn't think we'd want to pre-qualify 10, because when contractors are looking at putting this amount of work into a bid and they know they're bidding against 9 others, you're going to lose pre-qualified contractors as well. But, were we pleased that 3 were pre-qualified? Were we hoping for 3 to 5? Just kind of general background on that.
We were hoping for as many bidders as we could get, frankly. There just isn't, there's just not a huge pool of contractors out there that do this kind of magnitude of work. But we were happy to get 3 pre-qualified prime contractors. We thought that was really good. And we were happy to get 2 bids. We know there was considerable interest in the project. We had a lot of questions, even leading up, I will say, even years leading up to the project. I had contractors checking in with me of like, hey, when is this bidding? We had considerable interest, and that, in my opinion, is always a good thing. We also did due diligence to reach out to contractors before the bid, just to make sure that, they get notified through Quest, but we wanted them to know it was coming because, it is in everyone's interest if we have a lot of, a good pool of bidders on this.
I'd just add that I appreciate that background. Sure, Lytle, sorry. And I was not surprised that we only received 2 bids. I think in projects of this magnitude, that's not atypical. The pool of contractors, I believe, is, as you stated, going to be different than a 10 manhole rehabs, that kind of thing. So I do support the approach you all used with bundling this and issuing it as a single bid. I don't think the district plans on issuing too many at any given time, $100 million construction contracts. So I don't view it as a learning opportunity quite so much as maybe some other commissioners, just seeing the state of the industry around the country. And, I think both those bidders would be qualified for this type of work, and brings in a pool, them and their second-tier subcontractors that we wouldn't have gotten if we had broken this into much smaller.
Commissioner Clark, if the other wastewater treatment project bids in West are coming in 20% higher, this one's coming in at 17. In my opinion, we're not experiencing anything different than others in the Midwest are for this size project. I'm not crazy about a 17% increase, but not sure there's a lot we can do about this. I think if we continue to kick the can down the road, the cost is simply going to go up. But if we're preparing ourselves for 25 years out, different standards, which may or may not happen, probably more of a chance that they may happen than project we need to move forward with, and the longer we wait, the higher the expense is going.
Commissioner Freeze, so I agree with Ken on the physical part. Lisa, I had a question for you on the strand part. So, on big road projects, the general rule of thumb is that design and construction is now about 10% of the project cost. Strands, if I look at your numbers in the car, Strand is running a little above 13. So my experience, however, is in mostly flat work as opposed to pumps and electrical and wiring and plumbing. So is that 13% more industry standard for what you guys are working with?
Yeah, I would say it is. We looked at that a little bit too, just with regard to some of the larger addition projects we've done, and we think it's in line. It's as you noted, it's a little bit different. There's more. The difference too is like having worked in your world for a while too, I kind of know what's involved there. But a lot of what is involved here that's different is there's lots of like startup training, manufacturer interface, with startup of all this equipment and the O&M manuals that go with that, and getting our staff trained with a new system and troubleshooting all of that. So that's kind of the difference. That's kind of what, it's not just watching the stuff get put in. We can do that. We do that. And we will do that ourselves. But there's like kind of special assistance that we need is what I would say.
Okay. Actually, that was, you hit on that. So my other question with this, so first, thank you, and I kind of expected that. And second, as part of this, does Strand then train your staff on how to operate what they designed?
Yes, there is a component of that. Part of that is from the manufacturers, and then part of that is actually from the designers too. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, what I want to bring up on that is there's another, I believe it was $1.8 million that said it would have been higher, except we're going to anticipate hiring 3 positions, right? So that takes it well above the 13% when you add in the total engineering cost.
Our labor is in there, so
yes,
so you
correct. Included that. Okay.
Correct. Our labor is.
I read
already estimated in that line that's got our staff time included with engineering.
I thought I read that didn't include the...
Perhaps, perhaps there's some confusion. So, we, worked on the scope of work that we wanted Strand to perform. Originally, they included basically full-time inspection, as well, which we elected to not do because we can handle that ourselves. So that's what the 1.8 million was. So we basically trimmed 1.8 million out of their, professional services proposal.
So what I'm saying is, when you add that 1.8 million, it takes it well above what you said was the norm, 13 or whatever, 14%. You get what I'm saying? That Strand costs at the 13% or whatever Greg mentioned is the norm, but yet we've got another 1.8 million that we're going to be doing on top of that.
But we're not, because we took that out, if that makes sense. Their labor cost to do things is higher than our labor cost. They have a higher multiplier.
I realize that, but we have to add in the 1.8 million that we're going to be doing, you know, in terms of what the total percent of construction inspection will be Strand's costs plus our costs, which includes what we normally do, plus this hiring of the 3 engineers or how many will work for 1.8 million.
Eric Dundee, Executive Director. We actually have a little bit of a misunderstanding there. So the 3 positions that I proposed at the last meeting, one of those is for this project. So one project engineer position is for that. So that the 3 positions we were talking about last meeting, there was 2 project engineers, one of them being dedicated to this project, one being dedicated to other work. And then there was a 3rd position that was actually part of our enterprise asset management program. So I just want to be clear that those numbers don't exactly work out the 2 different topics we have there.
My point is, we have Strand at whatever it is, 4,235,000, correct? Yeah. So, but what I'm saying is, and you said that when Greg brought up the question about the 13%, you said the 13% wasn't in line, I believe, what I heard you say, with the standard for inspection services for a project of this type. What I'm saying is that contract with Strand does not include, that the inspection services also need to include the $1.8 million that we ourselves self-perform. So what my point is, it takes it well above the 13%.
Yes, but I think when we looked at it, we also include our own labor in those estimates. So when we're looking at it, we're looking at the whole package of what is it going to take to inspect and what engineering, when we include our own costs in engineering, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So we look at that for the projects and make sure that it seems reasonable, and in this case, we believe it is.
Greg, this is Greg. So in the car that Lisa's referring to, it does say professional services and MMSD staff time. So I did the math when I did the quick math, I did it on the whole.
On the whole, not just
on the whole,
Strand.
not just on Strand. So
Okay.
that's really my bad. I apologize.
Okay. I thought you were referring only to the Strand contract. Okay, thank you. Patrick?
Yeah, I think, the requested change brings Strand's total to 9.5 million, not the total of 12-something for
Correct.
staff.
That also has our labor and other, permits, all other items in there too.
Okay, that's my bad then. Okay. Ken?
One more thing, Commissioner Clark. President Hovell brought up a bidding strategy question that I think has some legs for the future. I'm not suggesting we go back and open this back up, but breaking up the project when it's this big, maybe that's a management headache, but at the same time, I think that strategy has some legs to get more bidders into the process.
Eric?
Yeah, I'm going to speak to that, because this is a conversation we've had many of times. I understand that you may bring more bidders in, but in this case, very specifically for liquid processing, we've already broken this 10 years ago into 3 different phases, and we haven't even got to phase 3 yet. This is phase 2 finishing in 2030. And you'll see what, if, I'll use your words, management decision, you'll see that with what I'm proposing for our heat and power and biosolids project being combined together, because the efficiencies of bidding and getting one contractor in there to do that. I understand the risks of, you know, getting a lot of competitive bids, but I also would say that that's what the prime contractor is doing for us with all their sub-consultants, you know, some contractors, so, yeah, thank you, I just wanted to add that.
So on that, I thought of that, but on that, do you know how much of the work C.D. Smith performs themselves of this? You know, like, are they doing 10%, 30%, 60? You know, what, I don't know what they, you know, do they have services they perform versus what they, because they would, you know, like, if they're not doing electrical, then they're receiving kind of bids, quotes from varied electrical contractors.
We have their cost breakdown, so I don't have exact percentages, but they are doing about $20 million of the work of
So
that
about
contract
20%.
themselves.
So then the 80% of the work is probably quoted out from different subs.
Yeah, it's heavy on electrical and mechanical work for
Okay,
this
did
project.
they identify who their electrical and mechanical?
Correct, because we had to pre-qualify their electrical and mechanical subs. Yeah.
Years ago, the district used to bid out construction, electrical, and mechanical all separately. Then they had to coordinate it all. They didn't have a general. Okay, have we beaten this to death? Do we have a motion?
So Murphy, I will, move approval of resolutions R7 and R8 for topics 4A and 4B.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Murphy,
Commissioner Bookland, I'll second.
second by Commissioner Bookland to approve 4A and 4B. We don't need a roll call on this, do we? Because it's... Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carries. Okay, that will take us to a study session on capital improvements plan. I guess we'll see where things are going from here.
All right, good morning. Todd Giebert, Planning Manager for the district. Here to present the 2027 draft capital improvements plan. Just give you an early preview of what we're thinking as far as spending for this, for the plan. So I guess by way of opening, I'd just like to say that putting this plan together has been both interesting and challenging. Interesting because we have a lot of 3 large treatment plants, projects that are featured prominently in the plan, and will change the way that the district operates its plant for decades to come. So that's really exciting. Challenging in the fact that it will result in you know, significant increase in costs relative to this year's CIP. So with that backdrop, things I'd like to cover today. Of course, this doesn't work. There we go. Is talk about some of the drivers, why we're doing the projects that we are, introduce some new projects to the plan, review the 6-year spending and how it compares to the 2026 CIP. As I mentioned, the 3 projects at the plant that are in the 3-year plan, focus on those, and then also review some other major projects in the plan. So I always like to start with this slide. Why are we doing the projects that we are? So about 4 or 5 years ago, we started breaking out our project costs into 4 driver categories. You see them at the bottom there: condition, capacity, regulatory, and resilience. So for the 27 CIP, the 6-year spending, about 60% of the costs are for aging infrastructure or condition. That's important because our performance areas in our strategic plan, one of them is infrastructure reliability, and a key indicator of success in that area is asset condition. So I feel like we're addressing that with this plan And then about the 40% of the project costs are, for capacity. So the plan is essentially the same. The 27 plan is 26, but there are a few new projects. In the interceptor category, we have 2 projects that we're coordinating with City Madison roadway projects. First one is to replace a small run of sewer on Regent Street, east of Park Street. This is a future phase of Regent Street. This isn't the one that you're in the news right now. We also have a project to replace portions of the South Interceptor in a future phase of the John Nolan Drive project. For pump stations, we are planning to do a condition assessment on the pumping station 2 force main. As you recall, this is in response to the force main break that we had last August. So we've expedited this project to make sure we're taking a look at that system. And then a smaller project to replace some equipment at pump station 1. And then finally, in the planning category, we have a project to evaluate the capacity of our collection system, and I'll talk a little bit about that a little later on. So reviewing 6-year expenditures, this compares on the left 2026 plan to the 2027 plan that is proposed. You can see the significant spending increase, $310 million in the 26 CIP, increases by about $224 million to $534 million in 27. And again, that's largely due to the 3 treatment plant projects that I'll talk about in a little bit. The spending in that category is increasing from a relative share of 64% in this year's plan to about 75% post-plan. So these are what we call the generational projects here at the plant. Liquid processing, you all know about that. We just talked about that, where that's at. The heat and power project, the facility plan was approved by the DNR earlier this month. We are now in the phase where we're hiring an advisor to help us out on navigating the renewable natural gas market. So that's well underway. And then for the biosolids project, we're wrapping up the facility planning phase right now. We expect that'll be done this fall. And then at that time, as Eric alluded to, we plan to consolidate those 2 projects and start design work early next year. So this shows the 6-year spending that we're proposing for the 2027 CIP. I'm also showing here the 3 large plant projects that I've alluded to. So in the first 3 years of the plan, 2027 through 2029, annual spending varies between $65 million per year and $68 million per year, with the spending largely dominated by construction of liquid processing improvements. We are also starting design work for heat and power and biosolids, as I mentioned, and that will span those first 3 years as well. You see here the spending increases sharply in 2030. That's due to the starting construction on the heat and power and biosolids projects, with liquid processing winding down in 2030. Should also note here, you see all other project spending. We try to keep that relatively constant at about $25 to $30 million per year. So not a lot of new projects being added to the plan, but we didn't delete any either. We moved some back to try to keep things relatively stable in that sense. So I mentioned before that the 2027 plan, the 6-year spending increases by about $224 million, and it's, again, largely attributable to these 3 large projects. The total cost changes total about $220 million. Liquid processing, Kaylin alluded to, major change in 6-year spending between the plans is largely due to the construction bid being a little larger than the estimate. For heat and power, we don't have any money in the 6 years of this 2026 CIP. And the reason for that is when we put that plan together last year, we were still evaluating alternatives, and there was an option where we could delay construction outside of the 6-year window. When we selected the RNG alternative, it became pretty clear that the revenue potential, we didn't want to wait on that. We wanted to expedite that project and move it up. That's why you see the money now in the 27 CIP. And then likewise with biosolids, when we did the 2026 CIP, this was prior to facility planning, we had a placeholder in the CIP of around $50 million. Now that we've almost completed the facility planning process, that cost has increased to $215 million. So this is a map, from the biosolids facility plan showing, some of the facilities that will be affected by both the biosolids and the heat and power projects. The heat and power infrastructure is shown in green. It's a little hard to see because some of it blends into the grass areas, but essentially we're dealing with a RNG, facility and an interconnect facility for the local utility. Biosolids projects are shown in yellow, and then anything in red is basically existing facilities that will need modifications as a result of this project. So I don't want to get into the details of the project. The biosolids project, we have our project manager will come to the next commission meeting and present in detail the need and more details on the project. But really just want to illustrate the magnitude and the complexity of these two projects. We are showing in the CIP, the 27 CIP, biosolids being broken down into 4 projects just to give a little more transparency to what is going on. So the primary focus is a new process to make a Class A biosolid. So the benefits, the major benefits of this is reduce pathogens, be a better product. It also have increased fertilizer value compared to what we are producing now, and it will also reduce our hauling trips by about 2/3. So significant improvements in this project. But also very costly. The other major component of the project is a new Metro storage and fleet maintenance facility for $25 million. Essentially, this is relocating our existing vehicle loading building, which is located by the lagoons, moving it just north of the facility here. Moving on to some other categories of the plan, the interceptor category, our major projects are related to the Nine Springs Valley Interceptor, which you've heard a little bit about already in previous presentations. This is a large project which will increase capacity in this stretch of sewer between Pump Station 11, which is located just to the south of us, and to Pump Station 12, which is located in Goose Lake in the town of Verona. We've broken up into 4 phases. Phases 1 and 2 are well underway. Phase 1 has a little bit of struggles with route selection, but we're making progress. Phase 2 is a little further along. We should bid that in the next month or 2. Or at least we'll be talking about this in the next, the capital projects update. But work is progressing. Phase 3 is not programmed in the 27 CIP, just the fact that phases 1 and 2 are slightly behind schedule where we thought they'd be. Sure. Yeah.
Of the lengths on that, how much is the interceptor's gravity flow versus
Of the colored sections?
Yeah.
All of it is gravity. Yes.
All of it. So where's Pump Station 12 in Verona? How far? If it's
Yeah.
pumping, how far up does it pump?
Pump Station 12 pumps up to County Highway PD,
Okay.
McKee Road.
Okay.
Yep. Then it's all gravity flow. to
Then it goes
Station
gravity
11.
flow from PD.
Correct.
Okay. That's what I was wondering where the cutoff was.
Yep. And we've increased capacity in that section where the force main discharges already.
Right. I remember
Mhm.
that project. But I didn't know if it was, I couldn't quite remember where the cutoff was for the
Yeah.
gravity. I thought it was a little further north.
Yeah, phase 4 would start where we left off at Dunn's Marsh there. We also have a significant number of rehab projects, lining projects, still in the 27 CIP. 8 projects worth a total of about $30 million. The most significant one is highlighted there, the Northeast Interceptor Truax extension, which is located by the airport. Northeast Interceptor system is got a lot of projects. Half the projects are devoted to that system. It's a little unique in that it's made of concrete, so it's very susceptible to corrosion, and also serves 2 large industrial users in Wanakee and DeForest. So we've invested a lot of money over the last 20 years, I'll say, in rehabbing that system. And with these projects, we will have either replaced or rehabbed that entire system here in the next 6-7 years. In the pumping station category, our most significant project is Pump Station 16 rehabilitation. Like the Interceptor rehab, we've invested a lot of money in the last 20 years and kind of cycling through all our pump stations. So Station 16 is at the end of that cycle. It was put in operation in 1981, so it's a newer station, but it's still creeping up on 50 years of service. So given that equipment usually has about a 40-year service life, It's time to replace the electrical systems, which you see at the left of the photo. And also at the right of the photo, there's an emergency repair that we did back in 2017 where some of the force main was leaking, so we'll also address that process piping with this project. A related project in this category is rehabilitation of our Station 16 force main. So Station 16 force main runs from Station 16, which is located in City Middleton near Peterman's Pond, runs along Gammon Road, and discharges down at Mineral Point Road. See the profile shown here. The problem with this is that just south of Old Sauk Road, there's that high point, and flow turns to forced gravity flow at that point. It gets really turbulent. Hydrogen sulfide comes out of the wastewater, and it leads to corrosion in the pipeline. So we've done inspections on that section of the pipe. Some of it is in very poor condition, so this project will either rehabilitate or replace those damaged sections. And it's a very tricky project area given that there's a junior high and a high school located on that very busy road. Also in this category, we're stepping up our force main condition assessments. Jen Hurlebus talked about this in April. The technologies that are used, they are expensive and they also take some time to do. We're actually doing our first inspection on the Station 10 force main, scheduled for October, so we'll learn a lot part of that process. And then we've also programmed a couple more here in this 6-year planning window. And then finally, in the planning category, I alluded to the collection system evaluation. This is a project that's in the district's 3-year plan. It's very important because it identifies capacity needs in our collection system so we can slot projects into future CIPs. So essentially in this process, we'll work with CARPC to update the population in our service area, and then develop flow forecasts and route that throughout our system to see where the greatest capacity needs are. So plan to start that early in 2027. So no action required today. This is just for informational purposes and get some feedback on the plan. As I alluded to, or I didn't talk about, but the financing is being worked on for the plan right now. We plan to come back at the second meeting here in August and show the impact of that. With that, I will take any questions.
Beth?
Commissioner Buckle, and as usual, I have actually it's a request.
Yeah.
So for the biosolids update, on the next meeting, I'd like to see, because it's a huge project and the costs are gonna really increase in 2030, so I'm concerned about that. So I'd like to know more about the cost versus the benefit of the project and what we might expect as far as return on our investment. So if you could cover that in the next meeting,
Okay.
I'd really appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay. Patrick?
I was curious, Commissioner Lytle, I don't know if you can go back to slides 10 and 11. One was the bar graph showing proposed expenditures. At least I didn't pick slide 1.
This one?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you. So obviously we have some major projects, expenditures around the liquid processing improvements, and then these heat and power and biosolids coming on strong in projected 2030 right now. And then on the next slide, slide 11, which talks about the differences between the 2026 and 2027. Can you, I mean, obviously the first line reflects the bids received for liquid process improvements. And then can you kind of summarize how much of these increases are related to, we're looking at a different 5-year window than we were in 26? How much was identifying projects that are moving up in time based on some reshuffling of the CIP? And then is any of that also some projected cost increases from 2026 based on market conditions and projected inflation?
Yeah, a lot there. I'll try to parse that out.
Thank you.
Yes, they are looking at slightly different windows, correct. 2026 CIP would be looking at 26 to 31. 27 is looking at 27 to 2032. But other than that, they're pretty much apples to apples in that sense. The heat and power, again, in 26 CIP, we didn't show any money. There's no money in the plan, this year's plan. Those improvements, for the reason I said before, that time we thought maybe construction would start outside the planning window. With the selection of RNG, we moved that up, so now all those costs are in the 6 years of the plan. So, that partly answer your question, or?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and, you know, I didn't expect you to have specific numbers, but in terms of how we've been updating the CIP based on, inflation coming in higher than maybe expected in 26, or actual additional information based on where we are in planning and design, kind of the project cost increases from a year ago.
Okay, so, yeah, this slide just deals with these 3 projects, then their contribution to the overall increase. I would say that we've made those adjustments for inflation. Our consultants are very aware of BABA and the other factors, and we're looking at our inflation factors and project cost estimates in that sense. Try to keep up with rising costs, yes.
Greg?
Thanks, Commissioner Freeze. So Todd, in my head, is heat and power and the biosolids project, are they linked at the hip? They have to go at the same time?
I would not say they have to go. They involve many of the same systems and same assets, so it's advantageous to do that.
Okay.
There will be 10 to 15% increase in costs, heat and power project, if you do it separately.
Okay.
That's what our consultant is estimating. But they could be decoupled.
Okay. And then the second question here is, so for the biosolids project, without getting into specifics, obviously we jumped from, I'll call it 50 million in last year's CIP to 215. And I believe in one of your other slides, you talk about that starting off in 2030 is when the actual construction, I believe, is scheduled. So it would have been in the 26 CIP, meaning the construction would have been. So what I'm trying to get at here is, what changed in the thinking to go from 50 million to 215, just in broad strokes?
Yeah. I will say it's as easy as it was a placeholder.
Okay.
We hadn't started facility planning, so it was taking some estimates that we had a master plan done in 2020. We knew we had to do something, and we kind of picked a midpoint of, it could be this. Once you get into facility planning, identify all the needs. I mean, we looked at, biosolids facility plan looks at everything in the solids handling process from the primary tanks through land application. So all those assets, and that the needs were identified, and that's why we get a much better estimate with that facility planning process.
Okay, that helps, thank you.
Was it part of it the change in scope too, going to that higher level product? That seemed to be a major increase going that. So what I'm wanting to, I think what you said is that you're taking into account inflation, because we just had an item where they said there was a 20% change. And I don't know why that 20% change, if that was the case, wasn't reflected in June by Strand's updated estimate.
These numbers
so
all...
I'm trying to, you know what bothers me the most is when you've got those massive increases in your CIP to what the project ends up being. This isn't new to this year. This has been going on in the district for years. Is that seems like the estimates are always much lower than what the project ends up being. Seldom do we see a project that comes under engineer estimate or under budget. It's always the other way, and now, you know, and then I tracked that for a while a few years ago, and I gave up tracking it. That's too complex. Yeah, well, you get what I'm pointing.
I do.
I don't want a commission 3 years from now or whatever to be surprised that a project is coming in at $20 million over budget, $10 million over, not necessarily over budget, but also over engineer estimate.
Understood. I guess my answer to that would be, we could also not have shown anything in the 26 CIP for biosolids and said we haven't really done a full analysis. The reason we put those placeholders in is so we can start developing our financing plan and try to get ahead of it to an extent without knowing all the needs. So
I guess my question doesn't just go to biosolids, it goes to everything in the plant. So, and I don't know if, interceptors and pump stations have seen the same increase as they were talking about with the 20% for the, liquid processing plant costs. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, I don't know. But that's, I'm just laying out my caution here is that we always seem to be well below what, you know, and I don't know if, like I said earlier on the other project, I don't know if it's due to scope creep or what, that we're coming in well above the CIP. Just a cautionary tale to make sure you have enough money and that you update them annually as the cost increases, not just a general, apparently you can't just use a general 5 or 6% inflation increase. It's, I don't know what that 20% was between, how many years was it, 1 year? No answer required, I'm just pointing it out. Okay, anybody else? Thank you. That will take us to, Mike Gilbertson on the Yahara Winds.
All right, good morning, Commissioners. My name is Mike Gilbertson, and I'm the Watershed Coordinator here at the district. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you the results of the 2025 Yahara Winds implementation season. '25 was another successful year for Yahara Winds, particularly when you look at the total annual phosphorus reductions achieved as an indicator of success. This year, we reduced over 68,000 pounds of phosphorus runoff in the watershed, which exceeds our annual goal by over 10,000 pounds. This is our largest one-year increase over the last few years, as we typically see about a 7 or 8% increase from year to year. This year, we almost doubled that, as we increased reductions by over 15% here. Some additional key takeaways are that WINDS remains on track to meet our long-term reduction goals. In addition, USGS monitoring data for 2025 also showed lower than average phosphorus loading to Lake Mendota, and phosphorus levels maintained downward trend across the watershed when adjusted for annual flow. Another way to measure our success is through the work of our implementing partners. Last year, the Dane County Land and Water Resources Department had almost 200 new conservation practices implemented, producing over 26,000 pounds of phosphorus runoff, over $1.3 million in cost sharing across 87 cost share agreements, and additional targeted cover crop work in the Badfish Creek watershed with the Biological Farming Friends. Another one of our implementing partners, the farmer-led group Yahara Pride Farms, they work primarily in the upper part of the watershed, the Middleton, above Lake Mendota. They had over 30,000 acres under conservation practices, producing almost 38,000 pounds of phosphorus reduced and over $1 million invested in the watershed. Half of that investment comes from Yahara Winds funding, while the other half comes directly from the 73 participating farmers to go beyond the available cost share. Another implementing partner of ours, the Rock County Land Conservation Department, an effective partner with working in the smallest area of all the partners. They had over 300 pounds of new reductions this year. They completed 30 practice verification checks of existing long-term practices for over $130,000 of support for Yahara Winds work. Zooming in closer to look at REACH-specific highlights, the majority of our phosphorus reductions still come from the upper and lower areas of the watershed. I just want to pause here too, and I use the word reaches, and I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but what that term does is it describes the smaller areas of the watershed. So in the map to the right, REACH 64 would be that upper part. I don't have a. Oh. That upper part, you see all those darker green dots, that's Reach 64. That's the area that Yahara Pride Farms primarily works in. And then Reach 69 is that lower part. There's more darker areas down there. That's Reach 69. And then there's 6 other reaches through the middle there of the watershed. So Reach 64, Lake Mendota, over 36,000 pounds of phosphorus reductions from that reach alone. That's over half of the full watershed total, and it's well above the reach-specific target for that area. Down in the Badfish Creek watershed, almost 13,000 pounds of phosphorus reductions last year, and that's contributing 18% of the total across the watershed. So these are the largest areas in the watershed, and we're excited about opportunities to continue growing implementation in these ag-dominated areas, while also working to grow reductions in other reaches where goals have yet to be achieved, like Reach 65, where we're in right now. This area will be a challenge for us in the future, but then when we look at how the phosphorus reductions are achieved, cover crops are still the most popular practice farmers are implementing to meet conservation goals, like improving soil health and reducing nutrient losses and runoff. I also want to highlight that in the southern part of the watershed, there was a 5-fold increase in the amount of cover crops implemented from 2024. But what's exciting about this area is, although Reach 69, so that Badfish southern part of the watershed, reported less phosphorus reductions than the reach-specific goal for the year, there's a lot of momentum here, and that's through the increased number of farms participating and the acres of practices implemented. So I'm confident that this area will be exceeding the annual reduction goals within the next couple of years. 3 things worth mentioning as part of our 2020 review. Perhaps you've heard about carbon credits this past year. The district was the first in the nation to generate and sell carbon credits through avoided emissions and by choosing the watershed management over new infrastructure for phosphorus removal. This received a lot of national attention. It was featured in several industry publications. It sparked a lot of interest from other utilities that have reached out, asking questions about our experience. We have updated reduction targets. So as part of our reissued permit process, consolidated our discharge into Badfish Creek. This led to an increase in the project's total reduction goal and the district's financial contribution to Yahara Winds accordingly. Even so, we are still on track to meet the updated targets and are developing better data to continue meeting our goals. This is through a new partnership with a company called AgriGraph. So AgriGraph uses geospatial tools and aerial imagery to find where conservation practices are lagging in the watershed. So this will help us in years ahead to identify new areas, target implementation, and for continually increasing our phosphorus reductions in years ahead. The final thing I want to mention was this year's story map approach for sharing our annual report. This was a new thing for the program that we tried, and it worked out well. The story map contains the same information as previous reports. There's partner stories there, phosphorus data, maps, photos, other water quality information, all those things that were in our previous reports, all in one. They're still all there in one place. But as the program continues to serve as a national model for conservation, we did this so partners and the public can further explore the work of our program. It still feels like the printed version, but it provides more capabilities to connect with the supporting data. Like it provides links to the USGS flow gauging information and other water quality data, for example. So if you haven't done so already, I invite you to check out the annual report. You can find it at yaharawinds.org, our website, or you can go through the QR code to take you to the report directly. And once you're there, you'll be able to read the stories of our partners, get a closer view of the program's growth, patient, and meet a couple of new farmers showcased in the report that we work with. We are very proud of these accomplishments, the continued success of Yahara Winds, and we're grateful for the committed partners in the watershed that we get to work with. So as we look ahead, we're working to stay on top of our program goals through developing new partnerships. through reviewing components of our program to identify areas for improvement and also identify new innovative ideas for addressing phosphorus from other sources. So, as time allows, I'm happy to answer any of your questions. Otherwise, you're always welcome to reach out to me directly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. So I got a question, and this deals with our favorite topic we have a little earlier is nitrogen. Because when we started Yahara Winds, I had inquired about would this be able to help with any nitrogen loadings that come down the line. And we're kind of just put off, well, we're not dealing with nitrogen. Well, it sounds like at some point we may be dealing with nitrogen. So is there a way that we can get an idea of how much nitrogen? Because I'm thinking it's also being held back or not getting into the stream as phosphorus is. Can we get any idea how much nitrogen might be affected through our Yahara Winds project that we could be also using adaptive management to help meet the nitrogen requirements and all then simply basing it on plant improvement? You know what I'm saying?
This is Marty Griffin, Ecosystem Services Manager. I'll take that question. So we currently don't have nitrogen requirements, so it's hard to speculate. The adaptive management option is not for nitrogen, it's for phosphorus. Our adaptive management program is built to measure phosphorus, not nitrogen. Clearly, the conservation practices that reduce nutrient runoff are going to reduce all nutrients, not just phosphorus. So I'm sure if we had the ability to go back and measure the nitrogen as well as phosphorus, we'd see reductions. But I think, unfortunately, the adaptive management option isn't something we can say, let's just translate this into a nitrogen reduction, because that's not the regulatory framework. When we do have nitrogen limits, we'll have to look at what the options are for that and act accordingly.
My point is to kind of track it to see if it's how feasible it would be. It'd give you a baseline of what we were dealing with, but that ship may have already sailed. I know what's required, and I know we only measure for phosphorus. The point is, I don't know what it would cost us to have done some measurements of nitrogen to see, track that, every now and then to see how effective that is. Because, we could, 2050, we could be facing a nitrogen, or maybe before, a nitrogen requirement, and essentially, now we've been doing Yahara Winds for, 20 years now?
Not quite.
Not quite. But by that time, it'll be, a couple generations, and won't go back to the base that nitrogen was. They'll probably be using whatever the Yahara Winds effectiveness is. Okay. Patrick?
Commissioner Lytle, I was hoping to take another look at slide 33. I think it was your second slide. So I note that in 2026, the target phosphorus reduction drops off, and I think when you mentioned that, you said it was related to the formal consolidation to a single outfall, or that's the first question. Explain the target dropping in 2026, and then based on the way our reductions are calculated, do we see a corresponding drop in the green bar coming in 2026 because we're focusing solely on a single outfall? Just a little explanation of that.
Yeah, as mentioned, that change is tied to the updated reduction targets that came through recently, and it's spread out so that, yes, with that change, that was recut. These new goals that were spread out over those years. So that explains that difference. But that's for our reduction goals. The implementation that's occurred, that's that green line. That's always that's where we're at, and our goal is to keep going. So our goal is to keep that green line going up. So those changes won't affect the green line.
Dan?
this is maybe to Eric though, because we reduced our goals, our costs go up. Is that what, connecting the dots, which I don't like?
This is Marty again, Ecosystem Services Manager. Just to clarify, the goals were adjusted because of the consolidation of outfall, increasing our phosphorus reduction commitment. But when we did that, it doesn't just pile on to the first year because we have a 20-year project. So we smooth that out over the years, and that's why you see that stepped increase of the blue. In terms of cost, that's a different way to look at it. So the costs are governed by an intergovernmental agreement that all Yahara Winds partners signed on to. So all of the TMDL named point sources that were required to reduce phosphorus in the watershed signed on to an intergovernmental agreement which had a calculation to determine each participant's contribution to Yahara Winds. Your contribution to Yahara Winds pay for the phosphorus reductions is directly linked to how much phosphorus you're contributing to the watershed. And when we moved the Badger Mill Creek outfall and consolidated with Bad Fish Creek, we essentially increased the amount of phosphorus coming into this watershed. So then we had to adjust our payment contribution accordingly.
Commissioner Paulson again. So then, once we get to 2029 or 2030, in theory, our payment would go down because we're back up to where we are. I mean, if we throw less phosphorus in the system, we would have to pay less. I'm just trying to figure out, we're going up $250,000 because we went from, there's 57,000 down to 42,000, and basically that's what caused it. And if we get back up there, do we reduce our payment then?
Maybe I'll explain this in a different way. The graph on the screen is the amount of phosphorus we're required to reduce, blue line, and the amount of phosphorus we're actually reducing, the green line. The intergovernmental agreement requirement is a payment to fund these phosphorus reductions you're seeing on the screen. So we're not showing on the screen the amount of phosphorus that the district is putting out that's driving our costs for the intergovernmental agreement. This is just our result of the money that we're spending. So hopefully that kind of clarifies what you're asking.
Yes. I'm assuming that the graph is what we were putting out there, and it's not. From the one-offs and stuff.
That's correct.
Somehow we're going up $250,000 because we're throwing more phosphorus into the system, per se?
That's correct. So there's multiple reasons. So the first obvious reason is outfall consolidation. So the amount of phosphorus that used to be going out at Badger Mill Creek is now going into Badfish Creek. So there's a chunk of pounds of phosphorus that the district wasn't accounting for. So that's one piece of it. The other piece of it is we have to reevaluate the actual phosphorus discharge from the plant every 5 years on a permit term, and it just turns out the last permit term we actually increased the amount of phosphorus coming from the plant due to various reasons of phosphorus coming to the plant. Right, we do a great biological removal, 80+%, but don't get it all, so we're still pumping out phosphorus. So those are the main reasons, and then we had to recalculate, and the costs are going up.
Okay, Ezra, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Commissioner Meyer here. Thanks to Mike for the presentation. It sounds like a good year in 2025, and that's great news. I wanted to ask, I know I've got tons of history on this back to the beginning, and so does Tom. Many on the commission don't. I wanted to ask you to sort of zoom out a little bit and remind us. So we, as the district, are using the watershed adaptive management option for phosphorus as our method of meeting our phosphorus requirements. It allows us 3 or 4, if I'm remembering correctly, permit terms of 5 years each to get to the ultimate goal. Kind of locate us in that long-term kind of arc. Where are we at? Second term in? How many years left to go? What's that target date? Just kind of give us that big picture, if you wouldn't mind, just to remind everybody. 2025 is a great year. Okay, but where are we in the big picture? Thank you.
Great question. So we just started our second permit term of adaptive management. So based upon the regulatory timeline of 20 years, we're starting year 6. I say that, I qualify that by saying the regulatory 20-year timeline because clearly we've been working in the watershed longer than 6 years. We had a pilot project that started in 2014 that was in a small part of the watershed. In about 2018, we moved to the full watershed. We've been working out there for a very long time. However, it didn't really line up with our regulatory permit timeline. We just fixed that, so we have 3 more permit terms left to meet our goal. So our final date that we're supposed to accomplish our goal, Mike, what is it?
That's 2041.
2041.
So 25 years total, and I'm not including the, and I think you're not including the pilot term. Is that what the adjustment is? That we actually went to 25 years of full blown instead of 20? Or did I misunderstand?
So when we had our first permit term with adaptive management, which was our last permit term starting in 2020 through 2025, that was our first 5 years, even though we had been working in the full watershed prior to 2020. So according to the DNR, we've only been utilizing adaptive management toward permit goals for 6 years.
I'm trying to do the quick math on 41, but and that's where I'm saying 25 instead of 20. But if you can do the quick math, great. Otherwise, I can move on. But good. Well, I think I know it came up when Tom and I were talking in the last week sometime. We're looking at, we're facing several new commissioners coming on board in later this year or early next. And I could see us doing a study session to come way back out to that big picture and with a group of new folks and plus those of us, even if we've been here for a while, it's sort of a long time since we really come at this from that high level of the district's phosphorus compliance needs as they're embedded in this really complex financial and watershed phosphorus reduction matrix that we've gotten a little glimpse of today. I think it'd be great for us to come back, maybe it's early next year, and come at it from that angle for everybody's benefit. Thanks a lot for today's presentation, though.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to Executive Director update. Eric?
Yeah, thank you, Eric Dundee, Executive Director. 2 quick updates, one of which is a deferral to legal. But the first one is just as a note from the past few meetings, I've been talking about investing in strategic funding, trying to find ways to get funding for our projects. You obviously saw how large our projects are. Happy to announce that Matt Seib, with a little help from Alan Grooms this week, has narrowed in, and we're getting ready to receive a Focus on Energy grant for $300,000 for our liquid processing project. So some of those steps we took for energy efficiency are paying off with grants for that. And then the second one is if you've seen in the news all the information about Act 10 and the challenges for that, I am deferring that type of conversation to Paul Kent, our legal advisor, because that is a legal situation now, but more to come as we follow it.
Yeah, the ELC was created in response to Act 10, so that could have whatever, if the Supreme Court were to overrule it, the appellate court decision have a cascading effect, yeah. Okay, and second quarter service charges are in the packet. We have the performance review. Ezra, you have anything to add before we get to the closed session?
Sorry, no, not other than what we're doing later in the meeting and closed.
Okay. Greg, anything for finance?
I was not at the last meeting, so one of those 2 fine gentlemen, Commissioner Paltz or Commissioner Lytle, will have to give the update.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Thank you, Commissioner Lytle. I'll keep it brief. We discussed a couple of topics around cash management and potentials for enhancing that. No action was taken at the time in hopes of getting an additional proposal or a scope of work around how we might update that. We received a draft quarter two financial report. We noted some discrepancies, and so staff are working on updating that. And once it's available, it will be shared with the Finance Committee, but as an optional, shared as well with the full commission. That summarizes what we discussed.
Okay, thank you. Alan? I believe you're up with the operation report.
Good morning, Commissioners. Alan Grooms, Director of Operations and Maintenance for the district. This will be end of second quarter report, June plant performance report shown first. What's showing here, the standard dashboard metrics you've kind of gotten used to. I'll walk you through what there are for changes. We're in good shape on total suspended solids, 4.8. I did go back and look at the historical data, goes back, so last month I didn't, the shaded average for BOD5 did not reflect, because a lot of CBOD data was in there from the previous permit. I did go farther back and pull some data from when we had the BOD5 to create that. So this does represent 3 years worth of data, but it is not the most current 3 years worth of data because we had that gap in there where we were under the CBOD permit. But that shaded area for BOD5 should give a truer picture than, say, last month for where historical range would be, and 5 milligrams per liter is about right for this time of year for us. The phosphorus dropped to 0.3 milligrams per liter. We actually did a little bit better than that, but our permit, this metric is showing the 6-month average starting in May, so it's May, June. So that's what we're showing, kind of right in the middle of that wide range we're seeing there for phosphorus. Our ammonia numbers and our effluent E. coli numbers were both good and within range. And then the chloride metric, there was a discussion because we're going into the issue on the chloride, what the limit will be. So we were at 408 last month is what I showed. We are back effective 1st of June or 5th of June, I think technically, whenever our challenge was accepted, to 430, which is our old permit value for chloride, and that's what we're currently operating under. So I was asked to find a way to depict that. What we've got here is that dashed red line with the 408. That is showing the commission where we would be with the new permit, but because we're right now governed by the quote old permit on this parameter, it's showing the 430. So feedback if that's a good way to show that or depict that in a simple but effective way. Okay, I'm seeing thumbs up, so it works for me. And if you've got other feedback, we can take that offline or via email. Any questions on our monthly metrics? Okay. Take us forward to quarterly resource recovery metrics. Again, for clean water, this would be what we're discharging back to the environment, 7.32 billion gallons so far. So that's going to put us halfway through the year, right in line or maybe a hair above where we were last year, somewhere in that range. So despite having a couple of good rainfall events so far, we aren't really out of line with that number. Similarly, the biogas number and the reused effluent are both kind of looking to track right in line with half the year gone. We're looking to be about right in those same ranges. So any questions on these three parameters for resource recovery? Okay. For the next one, struvite recovery, I'll point out, is down comparatively. A couple of reasons for that, both related to system improvements. We had some work on the control system, needed a major upgrade in May, and so that system was down for approximately 2 weeks. So that cut into our phosphorus recovery, shown by struvite, and also increased our phosphorus discharge numbers, which is going into the first gauge we showed, because we had that system temporarily offline and the biological system didn't have time to adjust fully to that. The Metrogo cake also shows quite an increase. So that's reflected by running the centrifuge a little bit and creating some Class A cake intentionally, a little bit as a test run in preparation for polymer trials. That'll be coming to the commission in, I believe, the next meeting for approval of that. So we're in the process of rebidding our polymers and looking to award that. And then our MetroGo production, that reflects what we're actually putting to the storage tanks, not what's going to land, but again, right in line with normal production numbers on that. Any questions on these? And I'm going to take you into some first-time slides. So as we're coming out and rolling in the KPI values for the district performance reports, this is the planned maintenance report. So this is our planned maintenance KPI, and it's reflective of it'll be a quarterly report showing total maintenance hours spent on planned work versus unplanned break-in or emergency type work. So it's basically showing how we're able to manage existing assets, looking to basically give a reflection of how much reactive versus proactive work we're able to do. It captures a lot of subtle aspects, and I'm guessing there'll be questions at different times about this. But so for the metric, and this is showing a bit more because this is our first one. So this is we'll normally be showing the last 3 months in period. This is, if you look at it, the dates are from about third week of February to a couple weeks back in July. So it's a bit longer period. It covers it almost, I would say, 80% of the year to date. But we've had 144 hours of emergency or break-in work for the crews this year, and 805 hours of planned or scheduled work. That translates to 15% emergency or break-in work. Our district goal, we're shooting at about 90% or better, is what we'd like for planned work for that. World-class organizations get into that single-digit range, and so when I say world-class, it may seem like we've set a fairly high bar, but there's no reason we shouldn't be shooting at that kind of bar. I think that's a good place to go. For some perspective, when we started this, we were about 75% on this. So since we've started that reliability-centered maintenance program, we've improved quite a bit on this. And some examples in this time period might be, we had the storms in April, and so we had a lot of electrical crews that had to go out on emergency call-outs to keep lift stations running and on standby. And so that work in response to an unplanned emergency like that is what falls into that break-in category. And by extension, those crews are not doing something planned. That work is now kicked to another week or gets deferred or has to be delayed. And so that's where you start to see that transfer work and that spread. So some of this, you'll never get to a 0% break-in work. That's just not realistic. But our goal is to try and bring that down as far as we can. So with that, a lot of information there. Are there any questions on this or feedback on this metric?
Thank you, Commissioner Lytle. You'll have to forgive me for geeking out on this one. Typically, when I see planned maintenance reported as a percentage, it's looking at cumulative hours year to date. And I notice you all are approaching this kind of on the average by week. Curious what sent us down that path as opposed to looking at cumulative hours versus the average that we're presenting.
Commissioner Lytle, that's a good question. I don't have an answer offhand. I'll have to get back to you on that. I think was just how we presented it, but I don't have an answer to that right now, so I'll have to get back to you.
Commissioner Pulse, I'll double geek on this stuff. It would be interesting to see how much overtime hours we're using for the emergency, and if we're understaffed. It'd be interesting to see.
And that's good feedback. And first time we roll out some of these KPIs, we're a little bit, we're trying to make an estimate of how this wants to be presented. So your feedback's noted. We'll look at changing how that's presented. And it's helpful to know that at this point too, because it may affect how we're rolling. Because you've heard a lot about the Workday project. That is something we're not. There is, these Workday projects and the upcoming enterprise asset management project that's coming. Those are programs that you know, right now pulling that data is a lot harder to do. So if we need to change the format, how we're presenting that, for the commission, it's better to know that now than down the road. We think we'll have better tools to, slice and dice that data. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you. Paul?
Morning, Paul Kent, District Legal Counsel. The second meeting of the month is when we typically provide a broad overview of legal for the prior month's June time that was billed in July. A lot of things going on, many of which have come here, starting kind of in the broad category of contract-related issues. Obviously, we've had the 2 condemnation actions that have taken quite a bit of time. Those have been resolved as a result of today's action, and we'll get those documents finalized. We also we're working on IGA with Madison, procurement policies, access agreements, and a couple of other items. So quite a few items there. There were a couple of personnel items, and I'm not going to say that. Not a lot, but 3 or 4 hours worth of. A lot of things on the regulatory front. There have been both response to a notice violation, monitoring and working with the party on the PFAS reporting, and there's some draft guidance comments that have gone out just yesterday. We're working on sewer use ordinance revisions. There are questions on the lagoon site. We also have filed a challenge to the permit, particularly with respect to chlorides, and that's why the chloride number is still the old one in full effect. Once you file, that keeps the old permit in effect. And then also some interesting questions on PVC litigation that we took a look at and added some comments. And some Act 188 questions, and I have to confess I'm not sure the full scope of those, but I know my colleagues were involved in responding to that. So all in all, a busy month. I wasn't quite as involved last month as I am this month, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to answer questions, but if you have any, I could.
Any questions? Okay, none. Thank you, Paul.
Okay, thank you.
I know you have to go soon. So that takes us to closed session. We do not need future meeting schedule. I didn't want to mention, we have 3 commissioners going to be absent the next meeting, August 13th. So if anybody else is going to be absent, please let Cassie know so that we make sure that we have a quorum. Okay? I remember Jim Martin years ago when he was on the commission was wondering whether we should even hold the first meeting in August, since that seemed to be the date time when a lot of people were absent. Continued with it. Okay, so closed session, convene in closed session in accordance with 19851C of the Wisconsin statutes, consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, executive director performance review. We have a motion to go into closed session.
Commissioner Lankela here.
Motion by Commissioner Lankela, second by Commissioner Paltz. Second by Commissioner Paltz to go into closed session. Roll call.
Commissioner Bookland.
Aye.
Commissioner Clark. Commissioner Freeze. Commissioner Hovell.
Aye.
Commissioner Lankela. Commissioner Lytle.
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer.
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy. Commissioner Paltz.
Okay, we'll see you in the other room. Okay, so, we discussed the executive director's goals, and there'll be future work that will be accomplished on those for possibly the upcoming meeting or a meeting a little bit after. We had a motion by Commissioner Clark, second by Commissioner Bookland, to go back into open session. Badri had to depart the meeting before the vote. Greg Freeze left at 10:05, but everybody else that was in the room voted aye to go back into open session. And I think that takes care of everything. Any future agenda topics, other business, motion to adjourn?
Commissioner Clark, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Commissioner Clark, second by Commissioner Murphy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. So Ezra, I guess is still.